Hello there everybody, how is it going and how have you been? I am EuclideanSqd, and we're back in Duel Links to check out the return of the Inglorious Bastion event. Now there really isn't all that much to say about this event. It functions just like every other roaming duelist event where characters round, you duel them, they leave for a bit and eventually come back. That's basically the process of the entire event in a nutshell. Now Inglorious Bastion does still have a lot of very annoying zombie cards in his deck, and in fact his deck has changed only slightly. I think only one card got swapped out for something else, but generally the strategy is going to be the same as the last time. All of his zombies are very annoying, but thankfully, because his deck actually changed so little, the farming strategy that we used last time is still pretty damn effective. Now, I don't remember where I found the original recipe, but a very good analog for that was posted by a user who goes by JadeHex over on the Duel Links meta website. There will be a link to the entire event page down in the description below if you would like to check that out, as well as the original recipe. But as usual, I have tried to take out as many of the really rare cards as I possibly can to make the deck as cheap as possible. Now, there are still a lot of super rares and some ultra rares, but rest assured that the ones that are present are somewhat easy to get for the most part. But the main strategy for the deck is going to be exactly what it was last time. Create an Ojama Knight as soon as you possibly can. If you can get an Ojama Knight out on the first turn or two of the duel, you're pretty much set for a win. If you can't, and Bastion ever gets 2 or more monsters in play, odds are you will lose. It's just, that's how the strategy is. It's a very all or nothing sort of strategy, but thankfully it is still pretty consistent regardless of that. So, as usual, there are a bunch of Ojamas that you can use as fusion material. I believe the original recipe had 1 extra black, but I took it out just for a little extra space. And then 3 copies of polymerization just to increase the likelihood of drawing one. Now, even though polymerization is a super rare, there are plenty of ways to get it. Some characters have a copy in their starting decks, some get more copies by leveling up. You can buy them from the card trader. For a super rare card, polymerization is almost ridiculously easy to get your hands on. The other super rare spell, being Union Attack, is a little bit more difficult. I believe you can only get copies of this by beating regular Yugi in a duel. Yeah, so it is just a random drop for getting Union Attack. You will need 2 if you want to get over 10,000 damage, but so long as you have 1, you can still one-shot Bastion with the typical Secret Pass to the Treasures, Union Attack, and Gravekeeper's Vassal combo at the end of the duel. Now, to help move the deck along, we have some Ojama Blues, which I believe are... Are you a dual reward? You are a dual reward from Chaz Princeton, even though you can also get a couple copies by leveling them up. Blue is really nice because Bastion will happily attack it while it's in face-down defense mode, and when blue is destroyed, you can search out any 2 other Ojama cards from your deck and add them to your hand, so you can find other Ojamas to fuse with, as well as just taking 2 cards out of your deck and making the duel go by pretty damn fast. Other than that, you have Ojama Country, which is a field spell that will reverse or switch the attack and defense of all monsters on the field so long as you control a face-up Ojama. This is specifically what will get your vassal to lethal damage levels, because Ojama Knight has no attack but 2500 defense normally, so with Country in play, Knight becomes a 2500 attack, 0 defense. The Kings are completely optional. I just have them in here because I want to. Honestly, you absolutely do not need a King. You will need 1 Knight, probably 2 if you don't have any Kings, just so that your vassal does get strong enough to beat Bastion. Plus you get a copy of King just for unlocking Chaz Princeton, so you should at least have 1 so long as you have Chaz unlocked to search for Ojama Blues. But if you don't want to use King, you don't have to. And the last ultra rare is King of the Swamp. This thing is very nice because it fulfills 2 roles at once. Specifically, King of the Swamp can be used as a fusion substitute monster, so you can use it with a black and a green to create an Ojama King, for example. But you can also discard King of the Swamp from your hand to add a polymerization from your deck to your hand. So King of the Swamp just fills 2 roles. You can use it in either way you want, whereas other cards, such as other fusion substitute monsters, can't search for polymerization. and other cards that search for polymerization can't be used as fusion substitute. So if you don't have King of the Swamp, there are plenty of alternatives. If you want to go for substitutes, there's probably a good half dozen at least monsters that say you can use them as fusion substitute. If you would rather have something to search out polymerization, those are also going to be fairly rare. The only two cards that come to mind off the top of my head are going to be the ultra rare Fusion Sage, which just adds a copy of polymerization to your hand, and the super rare field spell Fusion Recycling Plant, which does require you to discard a card in order to add a polymerization. So Fusion Recycling Plant is going to be a little less usable in some situations, just because, you know, if you have 2 Ojamas and Secret Pass in your hand, like, you can't search for polymerization without getting rid of either one of the things you need for night, or the important card that makes this whole farming strategy work. So if you go with Fusion Recycling Plant, just be mindful that it won't be able to help you every single time, whereas something like Fusion Sage can. But if you have King of the Swamp, definitely use King of the Swamp. Now, when it comes to this stand-in original recipe, admittedly, because again, I can't remember if I found the original recipe on Duel Links meta or somewhere else. Jade Hex had 3 copies of King of the Swamp. So aside from being 3 copies of an ultra rare, I only had 1. So I just swapped in Jars of Greed. They aren't the best, but I kind of prefer them just because they help in either sort of situation I could find myself in. Specifically, you know, if I need a polymerization, there's a chance that Jar of Greed will add a polymerization to my hand. If I'm missing an Ojama, there's a chance that Jar of Greed will add an Ojama to my hand. Whereas, again, to go backwards, something like a Fusion Sage will get me a polymerization. So if I have Fusion Sage polymerization but 1 Ojama, Fusion Sage is kind of worthless to me, whereas Jar of Greed could actually possibly help. So it's not the best. Feel free to swap this out with something else if you want to. More Ojamas, more polymerization searching, whatever you could want. But this is what I'm going with, is just Jar of Greed. Now when it comes to the duelist's skill, this is actually kind of difficult to settle on. I'm going with Restart on Prowler, but the problem with that is that Restart is not a level up skill, it's actually a reward for Prowler. But honestly, any of the skills that really work well with this deck are going to be drop skills anyway. Like, you can't really use Draw Sense low level reliably because, I mean, unless you're missing an Ojama specifically, it's, you know, it doesn't have a good chance of drawing King of the Swamp or a Vassal when you have 9 other Ojamas in the deck. Odds are Draw Sense low level is going to get you an Ojama. You know, Draw Sense Water would let you search for King of the Swamp, but nobody in Dual World GX, good lord, I can't talk. Yeah, nobody in the GX world gets Draw Sense Water by level up. It's all drops. So if you don't have Restart, don't sweat it, just find your next best bet. You could try using this with Jaden, and one of the skills that lets him add a polymerization to his hand if he takes a certain amount of damage. That might work, just because polymerization, you have fewer copies of that than you do Ojamas to fuse with, so could be a little bit more useful than Restart, but I'm going with Restart. So the point that I'm trying to make with all that rambling is that just pick the best skill you have and hope for the best. So moving on, because this is a new release of the event, Inglorious Bastion does have some new cards. Specifically, he has a new super rare and a new ultra rare. I'm not going to go over the normals and the rares, or any of the old super rares actually. I'm just going to cover the new super rare and the new ultra rare. So the new super rare is Amano Iwato. I hope I pronounced that right. It is a level 4 Earth Rock Spirit with 1900 attack and 1200 defense. It cannot be special summoned. However, monsters cannot activate their effects except for spirit monsters. And like all spirit monsters, once per turn during the end phase, if this card was normal summoned or flipped face up this turn, it returns to the hand. So this could be a cool card simply because it just shuts off all monster effects, like aside from its own. That would include your monsters if they are not also spirit monsters, but spirit monsters are a little finicky to work with, so might not be that good in the long run. And then the new ultra rare is actually a pretty good card, Nine-Tailed Fox, a level 6 fire zombie with 2200 attack and 2000 defense. If this card is in your hand or graveyard, you contribute 2 monsters to special summon this card. You can only use this effect of Nine-Tailed Fox once per turn. If this card that was special summoned from the graveyard attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage. Finally, if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 2 Fox tokens, which are fire zombies that are level 2 with 500 attack and defense each. So, Nine-Tailed Fox is a pretty cool card. It doesn't have that much in the way of attack points, but if it does get destroyed in battle, it summons 2 tokens that, if they can survive to the end of the turn, you can then tribute to just revive Nine-Tailed Fox. Alternatively, if you have any sort of deck that can swarm the field with other tokens or just other monsters, you can do that and then immediately tribute 2 to special summon Nine-Tailed Fox. There's plenty of ways to get this thing out on the field. Now admittedly, I'm not all that familiar with zombies, so I don't know if there's any really good cards that can buff Nine-Tailed Fox even further, like an equip spell or something like that. But it's kind of neat that you just have a monster that can permanently resurrect itself out of the graveyard like that. So, yeah, here, I feel a little bad about not wanting to read out the cards, but my throat has been feeling a little sore most of the day, so I'm trying to keep my talking to a minimum. But I will slowly go through and put each of the cards on screen. If you want to see what they do, you can pause the video. Here, I'll scroll a little bit so that you can read all of Oxyox's effect. Alright, my consciousness is bugging me about this, so I will read out the super rares and then I will show the rares. So the other super rare is Polychemy Critter Dioxogre, level 8 Dark Fiend Gemini, 2800 attack, 200 defense. It's treated as a normal monster regularly while it's on the field or in the graveyard, but like all Geminis, it can be normal summoned to become an effect monster. Specifically, once it is an effect monster, normal summoning of other Geminis cannot be negated, and once per turn you can banish a Gemini monster from your graveyard to target a card your opponent controls and destroy it. Oxyox is a level 2 Wind Beast Gemini with no attack but 2100 defense. Same usual, it's a normal monster until you summon it again sort of effect. But once it does become an effect monster, during your main phase you can special summon 1 Gemini monster from your hand, and if you do, all Gemini monsters you currently control become that monster's original level until the end of the turn. You can only use this effect of Chemicritter or Oxyox once per turn. So this gets really nice the turn after Oxyox becomes an effect monster, since you can use its effect to then special summon another Gemini, then use your normal summon for that turn to immediately give it its effect. Additionally, it's got 2100 defense, which is pretty tough for the most part. And then the final super rare is Red Ogre, level 7 Earth Zombie, 2800 attack, 2100 defense. When this card is normal summoned, you can send any number of cards from your hand to the graveyard to then target the same number of cards on the field and return them to the hand. So, pretty decent effect. You only get it once, but you can easily just send all of your opponent's monsters back to their hand so that you can attack directly. If you're using it in a zombie deck, there's plenty of zombies that like being in the graveyard, like Nine-Tailed Fox, for example. Plenty of ways to turn that steep cost of throwing away your hand into a benefit. So, like I said, here's the rest of the rares. Or, yeah, the rares, I guess. I'm not going to bother even showing the normals because they're both really bad cards. But, there you go. If you want to read their effects, go ahead and read them. But let's go ahead and have a practice duel, shall we? A little bit of a drink. But let's see, are we going to win or are we going to lose? Because you can pretty easily tell by your starting hand when you're using this deck. Alright, I'm going second at least, so if I don't restart I can get a free draw. That is an awful starting hand, I'm absolutely going to restart. Come on. That's even worse. And somehow I got a union attack and a secret pass back. No, can't even draw. And I lose. Because, like, I could put green down, he's going to destroy it, summon something else, and then there's no way I'm going to be able to create an Ojama Knight. So, well, that's fantastic. I probably should have just left my hand alone. We've had a 50% chance to draw an Ojama. I don't know why I didn't do that. Doesn't matter what I draw, I still lose. Now, if I had a blue in my hand at the start, that wouldn't have been bad. Because then I could have searched out 2 other Ojamas and then hopefully drawn a polymerization. But, yep, there we go. I lose. Okay, well, that was miserable and embarrassing. Do I get any pity rewards, maybe? Okay. Better than gold. Or gate keys or something like that. Alright, I would make a cut, see if I can get Bastion to respawn at level 40 and try that again, so I will be right back. Okay, that took me a few minutes, but luckily Inglorious Bastion seems to respawn pretty quickly for this event, and thankfully he decided to show up again at level 40, so we're giving this another shot. I don't know why I'm suddenly just... bleh. Tongue does not want to work. I am not throwing away this hand, this is the perfect opening hand. Alright, so, second time works. I'm going to immediately fuse for an Ojama Knight on turn 1, and it dawns on me that I forgot to explain why King and Knight are so good against Inglorious Bastion. It's specifically because of their effects. When either one gets summoned, you can pick... well, I'll explain for Knight first. When Ojama Knight is summoned, you can pick 2 of your opponent's monster card zones, and your opponent cannot use them while Knight remains on the field. So because of this, there is no way for Bastion to summon Red Ogre, there's no way for him to summon... well, okay, he can tribute summon for Nine-Tailed Fox, but Nine-Tailed Fox can't actually attack through Ojama Knight. And, honestly, the most absolutely obnoxious card in Bastion's entire deck is completely unusable at this state. Specifically, it is a monster called Kasha. And if you happen to see the video where I farmed against Bastion the first time he was here, you will know very well why I hate that card. Because Kasha is a zombie monster that cannot be normal summoned or set, and the only way to special summon it is for Bastion to control 2 zombie monsters. As long as he controls 2 zombies, he can just play Kasha in the 3rd monster card slot for no cost. Additionally, when Kasha is special summoned, every single other monster on the field, both his and yours, are returned to the deck. Instantly. Nothing you can do about that unless you have something to negate its effect. And then Kasha gains 1000 attack for every zombie-type monster that was sent away. Now thankfully Kasha only starts at 0, so unless you're using zombies against Bastion for some reason, it'll only ever have 2000 attack points. But that first effect of sending your monsters back into your deck is the most absolutely obnoxious thing. Because Bastion's deck is very, very good at putting lots of zombies in the field. Like, he has this Mizuki, which he can banish out of his graveyard to special summon another zombie from the graveyard. He has Gozukis, which can put zombies in the graveyard. He has that Nine-Tailed Fox, which can special summon itself. He has all kinds of annoying things. He has a Samurai Skull, which puts more zombies in the graveyard, which lets him special summon more. So if you don't lock off 2 monster card zones like this, that Kasha thing can just show up out of nowhere with no warning and ruin your entire attempt at farming him. And I hate that card so much, and that's why I'm using the strategy, so that I don't ever have to worry about drawing some specific counter trap to negate its effect, or to try and, destroy it as soon as it's special summoned, or anything like that. I just don't have to deal with it. King kind of does the same thing that Knight does, except King can target 3 monster card zones. Odds are you're only going to get 2 with an Ojama King, unless you're lucky enough to draw Ojama Black, Ojama Green, Ojama Yellow, and Polymerization for your starting hand. In which case you can just seal up Bastion's entire field, and then he really can't do anything. But that's why at least one Knight is recommended, just because Knight is a lot easier to fusion summon than Ojama King is, since Knight just wants any 2 Ojama monsters. Yeah, and there you go. This is pretty much exactly what you're supposed to do. Fusion summon Ojama Knight on like turn 1, or your first possible turn. Block off 2 monster card zones so Bastion can't use any of his most powerful cards. And then just kind of sit back and relax as he just slowly flounders about until you draw through your entire deck, and then you win. There we go. Alright, so on the final turn of the duel, make sure that you turn both of your Ojama fusion monsters into attack mode. This is necessary since Union Attack will only draw the attack power from monsters that are in attack position. Then you just play your Vassal, play Ojama Country, target Vassal with Secret Pass, and both Union Attacks. And normally Union Attack would mean that your monster can't do any battle damage, but Vassal's effect says that it doesn't do battle damage, it does effect damage when it attacks. So with that, our Gravekeeper's Vassal is now at 11,500 attack points, can directly attack because of how Secret Pass works, and Bastion loses. That is how this deck is supposed to work. Best of luck trying to find some way of making the odds to get, a viable fusion process as early as possible. I think that's a good sentence. Maybe there's a better combination of skills and cards out there, but this was the best I could come up with. And I didn't get anything worthwhile. Okay, well, such is the way of the roaming duelist events. They never seem to want to give out the cards. So, regardless, that's how you're supposed to farm against Inglorious Bastion using this Ojama deck. And if you modify it, just, use your deck accordingly. Oh, and nearly forgot, but thankfully, Bastion does have a couple of freebie rewards. So if you win 1 duel against him, you get a copy of Carbo Crab, which was one of the rares that I didn't cover. If you win 3 duels, you will get an Oxyox. If you win 7 duels, you will get a copy of Amano Awato. And if you play 15 duels without surrendering, you get a copy of Nine-Tailed Fox. And I just remembered that because I saw the little notice, and yep, sure enough, that was the 15th duel against him, so I just got another copy of Nine-Tailed Fox. Thank you, Konami, for doing that, because so far I've only gotten 1 of that Amano card, and that was through the bonus missions. He does not want to give me either of these new rare cards, and it's honestly kind of pissing me off. As most of the roaming duelists do, but anyway. With that, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all had a great time, and I hope you all have a great day. And I will see you all in the next one.